Incorporated USA. I also welcome Dr. Girdhari Lal Garg, Shri Gautam ji, and other dignitaries who are present from AICT. Shakti Tiwari ji, he will be joining soon. He is Secretary from World Book of Records UK. I also welcome executives from industries, faculty members from AICT associated with colleges and their students. I also welcome my colleagues from the department, my institute, media people, and students from IIT BHU. Today, we are going to have another talk by Dr. Manu K. Vora on effective project management. This soft skill program is of 6 sessions. The first one was on effective leadership, which was held on March 25th. The second one was on effective decision making, held on 1st of April 2022. Next one was on time management, held on 8th of April. And the last one we had on effective team management, and it was done on 14th of April 2022. This soft skill program is being organized by the Training and Placement Cell of Indian Institute of Technology, BHU Varanasi, and it is being done in association with All India Council for Technical Education, specifically Atal Academy and Indo Alma World. I'm indeed very happy to inform you that this program is being witnessed on online platform by our 800 plus registered students, another thousands of our students on YouTube. Very good number of students and faculty members from 9,000 plus colleges across our country to All India Council for Technical Education using platforms like YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. I'm also happy to share that a good number of industry executives are also attending this program. Today's topic on effective project management is very, very important. A project is considered to be complex, resource intensive, and composed of many activities, be it project on manned mission to moon, construction of bridges, and fabrication of large ships. They all are highly capital intensive. They involve many activities and also huge manpower. The students, undergraduate and postgraduate project may not be capital intensive, but generally require many students to work on it with a clear mandate of finishing all these activities by a specified deadline. In such a case, if the performance of all the teams or all the members of a team are not in unison, the project may fail in terms of objectivity or may not be complete by the deadline or may not be what the users of that project would have wanted it in terms of functionality or appearance. In the case of project management, we need excellent leadership skills to drive all the activities. It would also require effective decision making at all stages. Teams working on different activities are to be managed in an excellent way. Needless to mention that effective time management will be very much required to save project from delay and thus increase the project cost. So what you can see, the earlier topics that have been covered, they are not independent. In case you are going to work on project, want to manage your projects, all what you've learned earlier is also going to be used. For example, when you're talking about team management, even the leadership skills that was covered on the very first day, that will also be required. So all these learning that you're taking in various sessions of this soft skill program, they all are required, and that's what will make you highly professional. So how effectively can we manage our projects? Let us try to listen from Dr. Manu K. Vora. Dr. Manuji, he is the expert peer reviewer, AICT Atal Academy FDPs during 21-22. He is our own alumnus, was decorated with Centennial Distinguished Alumnus Award in 2015. He is member of AICT NEP 2020 Implementation Plan Committee. He is an ASQ Fellow, Chairman and President, Business Excellence Incorporated USA since 2000. He has 47 years of leadership experience guiding Fortune 500 companies. He has spent 29 years as an adjunct faculty globally in operations management, has contributed 6 ATA educational institutions worldwide, has delivered 1,220 presentations and has published 35 scholarly articles. He has written 50 blog posts on quality management, gave two TEDx talks, one in 2013 in India at IIT BHU, and another one in USA at IIT Chicago. He has designed and delivered soft skill program to over 1 million people, a huge number. He was appointed Fulbright specialist by US Department of State, and during 2016 to 2023, he is still continuing. So he's still there. He is serving as the president, Blind Foundation for India from 1989 and is still continuing with it. And he has raised $5.5 million. He holds B.Tech degree from IIT BHU Varanasi, MS and PhD in chemical engineering from IIT Chicago. He has also earned MBA degree in marketing management from Keller Graduate School of Management in Chicago. He has delivered 48 sessions at AICT Atal Academy FDPs in 1 year itself, 2021-2022 itself. He has peer reviewed 66 AICT Atal Academy FDPs in 21-22. He has earned earned 6 medals for quality and 4 medals for philanthropy during 2000 to 2015. He has earned 60 awards for outstanding professional contribution. He has earned 40 awards for lifelong selfless community service. Recently, he earned Certificate of Commitment from World Book of Records, London, and it was in recognition for his social work. So with this brief introduction, now I invite Dr. Manu K. Vora ji to share your knowledge and experience with all the students and the people who are present today. Dr. Manu.
Yes. So namaskar. Good evening to everyone. Thank you, Anil Kumar ji, for a very kind introduction. And I want to welcome all the dignitaries who have joined. Today's topic is extremely relevant, both as Anil Kumar ji mentioned at the professional level, but I want to add a component at the personal level itself. So both places, professionally and personally, we can benefit if we learn the project management, which should be the lifelong skill. So to begin with, I'll give you a few anecdotes in my own life, starting with personal situation. 1974, I was the one managing my own wedding plan, and we had 300 guests without any professional catering. It was done well. 1994, we built a house here in the western suburb of Chicago. So that was a major project in my lifetime. Professionally at AT&T Bell Labs in 1992, we put together a recognition process for 6,000 people across 3 countries, US, UK, and Netherlands. And also in 1996, for American Society for Quality, celebrating 50th anniversary of the society in Chicago, we had a 4,000 guests from all over the world, and it was a memorable event. And through all these experiences, professionally and personally, I've learned a lot how to do the project well and how to bring the value for the organizations I work for and also at a personal level. So with that brief introduction, let me share my presentation. Are you able to see the slide, the first one?
It's coming up. Yes, it is there.
Okay, very good. And also very honored to be teaching the project management course at the Northwestern University School of Professional Studies since 2008. So currently I'm halfway in the 14th session, 14th year, and I've been very honored to teach these subjects to well over 25 places in the classroom setting around the world. And at IIT BHU, a GYAN project on project management was conducted in 2016 under the leadership of Dr. Anil Kumar Agrawal ji. And in 2018, Fulbright project, which involved risk management, part of project management at the campus as well. Now, keep in mind we have the National Education Policy 2020 mandate to be deployed by 2035. In order to do that well, all the all the higher education institutes, K through 12 schools, each one of them have to learn and master the project management, which will be a necessary skill needed to have a systematic deployment of NEP 2020. And in support of that, at AICT Atal Academy, specifically project management and risk management have been identified as a FDPs for effective NEP 2020 implementation. So keep that in mind, that this is a importance at the national level for this skill. So we'll quickly look at the session 4 on teamwork feedback and recap the session, and then flow into what is project management application, where do we use it throughout the life, define at a high level the project, the goals, and what is the advantage of the project management. Project failures, big topic. We need to understand why projects fail. And by the way, I have woven in 4 excellent articles from various journals: Business Horizon, Harvard Business Review, MIT Sloan Management Review, and fastcompany.com. So I'll review those articles at a high level. I'll take you through how to take a mundane project and make it a wow project through Tom Peters' article. Then we'll have a brief discussion about basic project management tools and focus on best practices like budget, communication, risk management, review some good resources, summarize the project management module. And very important for all the people who are listening in today, including students and faculties, to remember to write down 2 key takeaways from the session. This will serve you very well as you go forward. So session 4, teamwork feedback, overall session. Thank you very much. We got the 100% satisfaction, combined, satisfied, very satisfied. For learning new concept, again, another 100%. So this is getting better. And 98.6% feedback. People thought that the teamwork ideas will be useful in their study and work. So thank you very much to all the participants from the IIT BHU who gave the feedback. And these were the 5 major takeaways from the session on teamwork. 5 stages of group development, that is forming, storming, norming, performing, and disbanding. How to be a good team leader, communication skills, and we'll re-emphasize that in this module. Effective teamwork, and very important, collaborate internally, compete externally. So as Anil Kumarji mentioned, here are some specific stats. For the last session on effective teamwork, well over 3,400 views, and combining the previous all sessions all together, we are around 63,000 views, combined AICT views and IIT BHU views. So thank you very much for taking interest. And most importantly, these are the resources to treasure and keep reviewing it and get good ideas to implement. So the summation of the last session was the difference between success and failure is a great team. So our obligation as a member of the team, leader of the team, is to continue to build fantastic team. I call them dream team. When you have a dream team, people are working collaboratively, passionately, they own up to their piece of action, task and subtask. And collectively, by taking initiative, showing leadership, managing their time, making ethical decision making, and working in a team fashion, they will bring the success home. And that's the essence of teamwork and the project management. So Anil Kumarji mentioned all these up front. They are all highly connected topics, synergistic. And just to re-emphasize, last century we needed reading, writing, and arithmetic. But in this century, we need 3 additional skills: teamwork, problem solving, and project management. If we master these 3 skills, we will be relevant in the global setting. Without teamwork, without understanding problem solving and project management, which will involve the previous 4 topics as well, we will not be a team player or a player at the world setting. So here are some interesting applications of project management. So as people move up after getting a degree from good institutions, they will be joining the workplaces in different domain. When you reach at the highest level, the leaders do the strategic plan. But to deploy that plan, the backbone is the project management. When you want to manage a transformation or a change, including NEP 2020, which is a major transformation in the education system for India, that's where project management finds its application. You have capital projects to deploy. That requires discipline of project management. Conducting research, this is in the academic setting or in the applied setting, doing your graduate, postgraduate research work and thesis. That's all project management. And by the way, in 1970 and 1975, I learned the taste of it by doing my master's and PhD thesis. They were all experimental programs, tremendous amount of work done at night because I had the graveyard shift. 10 o'clock at night, I go to the lab and finish it by 4 o'clock in the morning. So when you conduct the research, using project management as a discipline will allow you to set the timeline, include relevant status points, checking in with your research or thesis supervisor, and completing the project on time to get your degree and start working. And this is the best way to integrate project management during your studies, as well as doing the work throughout the life, both professionally and personally. And I'll give you one more example. At Northwestern, about 5-6 years back, a student took my class. Out of 10 sessions, my class was the first course he took. Other 9 courses, he took it later. But he mentioned at the end of my class that I'm going to use the project management discipline to plan out remainder of my academic program to get my degree, Master of Science in Regulatory Compliance. So project management is highly practical. It's not theory. And you can learn by doing it, not by talking about it. If you want to do any improvement projects, quality improvement, any improvement at your institution, in your workplace, you will need project management discipline. Software development. Every time you develop a new software, it's a new project. When you want to deploy enterprise resource planning, that is a giant common database capturing all the information for the organization related to people, processes, finance, customer, etc. If you want to develop a new product, that's a project. Construction of bridges and roads, building aircrafts and ships, and most important, solving any organization problems related to customer, finance, operations, people related, etc. Project will be chartered. And unless you have project management discipline, you are not going to be successful in delivering the best results in the time frame given to you with the resources allocated to you. So don't take project management lightly. It's extremely important. And towards the end, I'll make some special recommendations at the India scene. So as we mentioned, that the NEP 2020 is a major transformation or a change journey until 2035. And there are 3 pillars for this change journey. One is the leadership, which should provide the direction. Second one is a talent, which will be the employees implementing the change. And the third one is the project management, which will facilitate the change as a backbone. You need to leverage the project management discipline, to deploy National Education Policy 2020 in a most systematic way so that you can get the best results and achieve the excellence, which is the cornerstone of the highly aspirational NEP 2020. So let's quickly review what is project. It's a temporary organized effort to create a unique product, service, or a plan. And here are some special characteristics of a project. There's a single definable purpose, and thank goodness only 3 special goals are needed: performance, cost, and schedule. It's a unique one-time activity. It's a temporary activity with a limited time frame, start and end time. It cuts across horizontal lines, multiple professions and organizations. And its unfamiliarity, you are getting into the uncharted waters. Uncertainty means risk is inherent part of the project. Something is at stake when you do a project. And very, very important to remember that when your project is taken, you are putting best effort and delivering the great value, your reputation goes up as an organization. I'm going to share with you some great examples of successful projects around the world spanning back to over 4,500 years. So the first one is the Great Pyramid of Giza on the west bank of River Nile. So 4,500 years ago, these pyramids were built and they are standing intact at this point. Great example of successful projects with limited technical know-how and technical tools open at that time. Next one is the Colosseum in Rome. This is Hagia Sophia in Istanbul, Turkey. Started out as a church, became a mosque, museum, and now it's converted to mosque again. Then our own Taj Mahal, 7 wonders of the world. In the middle, first house of worship built, the Baha'i Temple here in the city of Evanston, where Northwestern University is. And the Space Shuttle and International Space Station, the bullet train, and Mount Rushmore, where during Depression time, the heads of the 4 most popular presidents were carved out in the mountain to give people some work to do so they can earn money and bring the bread on the table. So these monuments over the ages have survived because there was a fundamental project discipline they have been using and used, and that is allowing them to be successful. And we'll pick up on brief history of project management very shortly. So as I mentioned, there are only 3 goals one need to master and achieve for the project: performance, cost, and schedule. And you really need to hit the bullseye on the target by achieving all 3 as originally planned, without any changes in the performance, cost, and schedule. So project management, let's quickly define, is the discipline to integrate resources and tasks to achieve organization goals. And here are some advantages of doing a good project management. It will avoid excessive workload for few individuals because it will have a good distribution of tasks and subtasks among the members of the team. Since everyone is focused on getting things done on time, it will avoid the cost overruns. There is no duplication of work. Doing the project, people learn the right skills. There is no strained relationship. When good things happen, people are more collaborative. It will prevent scope creep. By scope, I mean what is inside the project, what is being worked on, and what is outside of the project, which will not be addressed. As I mentioned, it avoids duplication of work and it allows better use of limited resources. So these are the specific advantages of doing a good project management. Now I want to share with you, excuse me, some information about software project failure. So why I chose software as an example, because software is ubiquitous. In anything and everything we do in life, software is part of the things present. So at the home front, you look at the washer, dryer, dishwasher, everywhere things are run. Those equipments are run by the computer software chip. The computer chip software is running it. You take a look at all the airplanes, ships, everything moving around the world is managed and controlled by the computer chip. So initial set of data came out from UK, and on the first column I've defined 3 metrics. Success means performance, cost, and schedule were achieved as originally planned. Failed means no matter how much money you pump in, that project needed to be terminated. And challenge means 1, 2, or 3 of those objectives and goals had to be revised in order to meet the available resources, etc. So first set of data, 1994 for software projects, only 1 out of 6 successful. Move forward 15 years, 1 out of 3 successful. Rest were either failing or challenge. In terms of the economic cost of project failure, world over $70 trillion, the GDP around the similar time frame, 2009 data. Cost of IT failure was 6.2 trillion US dollars, about 8.5% waste. And that waste is a waste for the society. So when project fail, society suffers. Resources are being wasted away. So here are some glaring examples of project failures. 2006, Ford Motor Company had to abandon after spending $400 million for a new purchasing system when they realized it will never work. In UK, the Inland Revenue System by mistake credited $3.5 billion as an overpayment to the citizens. They had to, of course, collect it back at a cost. Denver International Airport, they burned $250 million to get the automated baggage system. They realized towards the end that it will never work, so they had to cut it off. The big one was US Department of Defense's $6 billion kinetic energy program. In 2009, it was terminated when they determined it's not going to be feasible to complete the project as planned. And of course, at the India scene, Commonwealth Games Project Scandal 2010 and Ganga Action Plan Project 1986 to present. A lot of money is pumped in for Ganga Action Plan. Middlemen are benefiting. Gangaji is getting more and more polluted. So River Ganges is not getting any cleaner. And this is the failure of the project at the national level. So very first article, I would like all of you, and a special tip, those who are faculty, they have access to ResearchGate. They can get this article from Business Horizon by Pinto and Kharbanda, 12 ways to fail in project without really trying. And there are several other articles which will be keep coming. And these are the fundamental articles. If we learn and apply the principles and practices from these articles, we'll be better off managing our projects well and deliver value at the workplaces and in our own life. So very quickly, these 12 items talks about in a reverse way, how do you fail in a project? So when you do not consider the project environment, including stakeholders, if you are pushing a new technology to the market quickly, you do not have a fallback options. When the problem occurs, you are just shooting the most visible, that is, you don't have a good problem-solving skills. You starve the new idea to death due to inertia. That means there is no proactive decision-making. No feasibility studies are done. 7th is important. Never admit the project is a failure. You keep pumping more and more money, put good money in the bad project, and never cut it off. overmanage your project managers and the team. Never conduct post-failure reviews. I'll have a template to share shortly. Never bother to understand project trade-offs. There is a trade-off between schedule, cost, and performance, depending on the conditions you are in. And next one is very critical. Allow political expediency and infighting to dictate crucial project decisions. Poor decision-making skills will burn your project. And last one, very, very important to remember. Do not allow the project to be run by a weak leader. That's a sign of a failure. Others will have to catch up and do many more things when the leader is very weak and silent. So beautiful article. And by the way, this article was the backbone for the Gyan project on the project management course we ran at IIT BHU in 2016, where they worked on 4 teams, 17 research scholars and 1 person from DRDO, 4 projects, 2 successful, 2 unsuccessful. 2 successful projects were Delhi Metro and Mangalyaan. The unsuccessful were Commonwealth Games and Ganga Action Plan. They took these as a backbone and did the research. 4 teams put together a beautiful projects, and they all graduated with distinction. And this was done with the help and leadership of Professor Anil Kumar Agrawal ji at IIT BHU. Thank you, Anil Kumar ji. So at this point, I'm going to stop sharing and we'll come back and do some discussion, interaction up to this point. So Anil Kumar ji, if you have any questions, let's clear them so far.
There's one question, probably you're going to address it at a later stage. The question goes like this: a great project can also face issues such as bursting, which is outside the purview of the team members. How can the project management team resolve this?
Okay, so what was
the project issue is an outside issue, mostly controlled by not by project managers, but the finance people itself. So something is beyond your control and it is hampering the progress of the project.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. And these things will happen in life because things are not as you have planned. Things are never constant. Okay, change is always there. So at that point, you as a project manager or a project leader need to sit down with your project sponsor. Project sponsor will bring in the customer, internal or external as appropriate. You need to have a roundtable discussion to see what the issues are and what impact it can have on the project you are leading. Now, if it requires some little bit more additional resources, you need to ask for it because you are talking about changing the scope of the project at that point and get some relief in terms of the budget, in terms of the performance, and in terms of the schedule. So when things are outside of the scope, first thing you do proactively as a project manager, project leader, sit down with your project sponsor, update him or her about the changing situation, get the guidance, and collectively make a decision to take the project forward. And this is where project management only succeeds when you are proactive, not reactive. You are looking out as a project leader, project manager, to see what changes can come. And this is part of the managing your risk. And I'll talk about managing the risk very shortly as well. Next question, please.
Manu, particularly in Indian context, it is bureaucracy, red tapeism, it affects the project progress. So how is it that maybe one can have the minimum impact of red tapeism?
Yes.
Indian context.
And a perfect example is Delhi Metro. Mr. Sridhar made sure that there was no bureaucracy coming to hamper the progress he was making on the Delhi Metro project. And that became successful because of his determination and his dedication on the project, and he was given good freedom. Likewise, my sincere request at the India scene is that the bureaucracy should be enabler of change rather than come in the way of the change. When that thing happens, it is not very useful. National resources get wasted and people get demoralized who are working on a very important project of national importance. So I'll leave it at that. And if you are okay, we can move to Ghazal ji for a couple of questions and then keep moving in the journey.
सर कई बार ऐसा होता है कि प्रोजेक्ट कोई चलाता है और बीच में फिर कोई आ जाता है.
Okay. So change in the leadership.
Change in leadership. तो जो विजन फर्स्ट लीडर का होता है वो सेम विजन कैरी फॉरवर्ड नहीं हो पाता.
हाँ. Yeah, so this is again a serious issue, and this is where the organization, sponsor, and the customers, they need to be kept in the loop. So first of all, you need to think about it this way. Why the change was made? Was it necessary? Can the person be remaining as a team leader, project manager for duration of the project? And generally, these projects have a fixed duration. It's not a very long time projects, most of them 6 to 8 months, maybe a year. And if those projects are of continuation, longer time, that will require careful thinking of whom to appoint as a project leader, keeping in mind the stability, etc. And of course, in light of that, still unusual circumstances can happen because of the emergencies, health, relatives, etc. But the fundamental rule of project management is to build the project charter, which will define the foundation of the project. I'm going to spend a little bit more time on it shortly. And once that charter is fixed, no matter who is taking over that project has to follow the guidelines and follow the vision of the project and achieve the mission which was created right up front, where it was signed off with the help of the project leader and the project sponsor. That is where the issue comes. We do not have discipline of doing a project charter, and this is what I have been seeing and discussing with faculties. Yeah.
Manuji, you have rightly said the project charter is a very, very important step. When I was at Ispat Industries Limited, why is that we could execute about 222 projects in a year? The reason was every project was chartered.
Great.
That's the reason. And
yes. Yeah, wonderful. One more question.
मनु सर एक क्वेश्चन और है कि प्रोजेक्ट का कॉस्ट मान लो 100 करोड़ रुपए है, पर जब प्रोजेक्ट एंड होता है तो वो 500 करोड़ रुपए का हो जाता है.
I know. Yeah, so that is where the discipline is needed. So you put it in perspective at the home front when we have to manage the budget. At the beginning of the month, we know how much money coming in, how much are the expenses, and we cannot keep overspending it. And if we do overspend on a monthly basis, we have to dip into our savings. Now, for a project, money is fixed at the beginning. The budget is allocated. Unless there are some special circumstances where project of national importance, additional money will not come. And I'll talk about it a little bit more on budget control. But unless you manage it throughout the life of the project in a systematic way. So, for example, if it was a 6 months project, X number of amount of money is allocated. You have to divide it up into 6 segments. Each segment should reflect the amount of work needed to be done and review it very systematically. Have you achieved the objectives and how much money did you spend? And if you are overrunning, make sure you are making necessary amend to bring it under control. If you don't, you are going to have a problem and you will run out of money before the project is over. And as I mentioned, and I'll bring it up towards the end, there are very special projects of national importance. There is a special additional money management holds back, and that money only will be given when the project is in real trouble, but it has a large importance to the organization, then that management reserve will open up. And by the way, to the tune of up to 50% more budget can be allocated at that point, but that is the exception, not the rule. In the interest of time, let me continue to get back into the sharing here. And now I have to include the system audio, which I have done. And let's get back to where we started. Are you able to see the slide, please?
Yes, Manu.
Okay, thank you. So in this picture, it sums up the current scenario at most of the organization in all domains. So what do we see here? It is a graveyard of pipeline. Just substitute each pipe with a project. This is the situation at many organizations where there are many projects on the docket. Some are starting, funded with the right resource. Then another important project crops up. People are moved from the first project, which is halfway done, abandoned. They move to the another one, and so on and so forth. This is not the way to manage any project. So the solution is you need to have a central approach, and then good organization have a position called PMO. That's a project management office, staff function reporting at the highest level, MD, CMD. And they have no axe to grind on any specific project. So last 2 months before the year is over, they request all the people in various functions what projects they are going to be working on. And they collect the list of all the projects, and then they do prioritization. Impact to customer multiplied by the impact to the organization, multiplied by the feasibility, cost, and availability of key resource to deliver on it. Multiply those three factors, say on a 3-point scale, 3 times 3 times 3. Whichever project gets 27 will sit at the top. Then others get arranged from the highest to the lowest number. Only projects which come in at the top, few of them, get selected at the beginning of the year, given the right resources to work on, and when they are completed, you move down the chain in terms of the next important project. So this is how you allocate your resources in a proper way to ensure the completion of the projects, bring the money back in, because unless you finish a project, customers are not going to pay money to you and your money is tied up. Yeah. So keep in mind, doing many projects is not a good thing, but doing the right project at the right time has the excellent value for the organization. So you need to prioritize. Life only works with the priority. You cannot work on everything all the time, just prioritize. So here is a second great article I want to mention. Harvard Business Review, originally published in 92, republished 2003 by Wheelwright and Clark. The concept is called the aggregate project plan. So here are some 5 compartments. The first compartment, it has a derivative project. So automotive example, you want to touch up, create a new paint on a car body. That's a simple change derivative project. The platform project is the one which is the next generic of the automobile. 3-4 years later, you come out with a new model. Breakthrough project is either the hybrid car, which Toyota came out with, or Tesla, the electric car. R&D projects where Sony came out with a 3-dimensional TV, which required special goggles. Unfortunately, there is not much 3-dimensional TV, programming, so that has remained as a project, as an R&D project, not become commercialized. And the combination of these platforms, any combination, will allow better value creation. And here, I want to share an example of FedEx, which moves packages around the world. They teamed up with a small company called Kinko's, which is an office supply company. So FedEx, instead of building large number of facilities to receive packages, They ask customers to drop off their packages at Kinko's, which is open 24/7. So periodically during the day, FedEx trucks comes, picks up the packages, and FedEx saves on not building many more facilities to receive packages. And the people who go there at Kinko's, they buy up office supply products, duplication, buying pens or pencil or whatever. So both organizations are succeeding and thriving because of the collaboration. So this article talks about a new product development company, small company doing 33 projects. As we saw in the earlier diagram of a graveyard of project, graveyard of pipeline, those 33 projects simultaneously running throughout the year, none of them were completing and they were not getting any funding from the customer because projects were incomplete. So after applying this concept of aggregate project plan, they cut it down from 33 to 11 projects only, with few in each of the compartment, and they were able to complete them well, deliver it to customers, get more money for future projects. So this is aggregate project plan, extremely critical to prioritize your projects and put them in different buckets, different compartments, so that right things are happening for your organization. Next one, we just learned that world over only 70% of the projects are successful. If you want to bring it to, 70% of the projects fail, 30% success. If you want to reach all the way to 100% success, this is a beautiful article, third one in this series, MIT Sloan Management Review. It talks about how project leaders can overcome crisis of silence. So there are 5 items. The project team must work around the facts. So let's understand that in many organizations, the top leaders will dream up things, let's do this and let's do that. Now they have no facts or anything behind it. They will just throw it on the lap of the project leader or project manager. And it's up to the project manager to identify the right team which will work on that issue and early on make the determination whether that's a feasible project or it's not going to work at all. That planning around the facts is extremely critical to start the project well. The project sponsor must provide support through the life of the project. And unless the project sponsor is there all the way, project has a great chance of failure. The team must be faithful to the project management process, and that includes regular status reviews and staying in touch with each other through great backbone of communication, etc. They need to honestly assess the progress and the risk. And this has to be done in a systematic manner. I'll tell you one example. At AT&T Bell Labs, I used to observe when I was part of running a project review, where on a major project, some 50 plus project manager team members around the world contributing on a different aspect of a major project, millions and millions of dollars of new software to be developed. They will come together for a 1 hour status review once a week. They were all assigned a specific goal to talk about in a color coding. Green means they achieved that goal for the week. Red means they have missed the goal. Yellow means they are likely to miss it for that week. Just the status is discussed. No actions are taken in the status meeting. For all those items in red, there is a small meeting held between the person who blew the goal and the project sponsor, and they work it out with the help of a project leader, what resources are needed to bring back on track. That kind of discipline, and project management is all about discipline. If we inculcate that discipline in ourselves, we are more likely to be successful in the project. And the last one, all team members must pull in their weight. So case in point, if there are 7 members on a team, one or two members of the team are slacking off. They are not contributing on their task and subtask. The impact is felt by the remainder of the members. Somebody will have to take up that slack, and that causes extra stress. Output of the team will be suboptimal. So please, when you are part of the project team, first of all, ensure that you are there physically, mentally, and spiritually. You are contributing at your best. And the simplest thing, I put it in this way, is that what I have learned is if I am a part of the project, I'm going to own up my piece of action, and I must deliver everything all the time, on time, without questions and without being asked. And that is the kind of ownership we all need to have to be a member of the team. And when that is done, you can have a wonderful project and you can bring the great value home. So these are the 5 crises of silence the project leader must overcome. And that is just to show the emphasis of that particular item, which needs to be managed well. Okay, at this point, I'm going to share with you a short YouTube on project management history, starting from the building of the pyramids and taking it to the current time. And beautiful things happen over the long period of time without any specific tools and techniques. They have sustained the great projects. So let's enjoy the nice YouTube on the history of project management.
As if something were calling, a voice from the past, like some sort of inherited memory.
beautiful way to learn the history of project management and ensure that we take some of those lessons forward and do our projects well. So as I mentioned, here is another great article, the fourth one in a series from fastcompany.com by Tom Peters. He was partner at McKinsey and Company. After that, he left the company and started his own management leadership company, and he commands a huge salary on a daily basis to come and give a talk and work with the leadership teams. So this 8-page article, which I sincerely request each and every person who are listening in, keep spreading this news about this free article from fastcompany.com on how to take a mundane project and make it a wow project. It's a beautiful way to pick up the nuances of creating a beautiful project, find and create a project, then sell the project that is showing the value of the project to everyone who is involved and who can help you. Execute the project that is rolling up the sleeves and bring the project home. And at the end, you have to hand the project off because it's a temporary activity. Excellent article. It will give everybody a foundation in project discipline. And this is what is needed. We need to learn to leverage the great resources and make use of it so that we are all more effective and efficient. So quickly, 4 components: find and create your wow project. Very important to include your personal passion to make the project a great project and keep adding value. Learn everything you can from the working on a project, and the 3M company which makes this yellow sticky paper, which was, by the way, an accident. It was meant for something else, and they realized the sticking value, and now they are selling it. So their motto is make a little, try a little, sell a little. By doing small things and making sure it works, you are more able to finish it and continue to refine your project to make a wow project. Selling your project, you need to have a 2 minutes elevator spiel. That is a high-level view of what you are working on and what its real impact is to the group, department, and the organization, or to your project team at the institute level, and continue to build community of endorsers. In terms of executing the project, simple guidance: execute in series of rapid prototypes. Fail often to succeed sooner. This is the mantra of project management. Fail fast to succeed sooner. Why? While you are doing these things, small tasks and subtasks, you try to work on it, see if it works. If it doesn't work, learn from it and make it work and continue the journey. You will reach the destination within schedule or even before the schedule. You need to manage your timeline well. Keep the project fun, and don't stop selling the value of your project, and keep your emotion high through the life of the project. And at the end, handing off your wow project. This is the most difficult things, because when you work on a project, it essentially becomes your baby. You do not want to give it up. But when the project is complete, you need to hand it off. So it becomes an operation somebody else will run. So when time comes, hand it off to others who will run it. Celebrate your accomplishment. Do the evaluation, what worked, what did not work, and what lessons have you learned, which you can deploy in the future projects when you get a chance, and work on the next project. This is very, very important, handing off your project. Now, one additional piece of information. Individually, a single project, when you are doing similar projects together, it becomes program. When you have a number of programs running, it becomes a portfolio. And when you have the combination of various portfolio, it becomes the enterprise at the highest level in the organization. So there is a succession: project to program to portfolio to enterprise level. So keep that in mind and what's the meaning of those terms. So some of the things I'm bringing in for reinforcement from previous sessions: team project member roles, 5 to 6 members per team. One person should take the project leader role, keep the project on track. One person is a communicator, communicate the progress with the project sponsor on behalf of the team. 1 or 2 project researchers who go and dig out the fundamental things and do the research needed to work on the specific aspect of the project. And 2 people as editors, 1 for the report and 1 for the slide. And by the way, this is exactly how my teams at the Northwestern University, when I teach the class, they are given this specific guidance. And I give them roughly for a 10-week program, about 12 to 13 special templates, and allow them to use their creativity and innovativeness to fill in those templates so that output is standardized, easy to compare against one group doing the different things with the other groups, and still able to manage the work within 10 weeks window. And currently 3 teams are chartered. Here I have only small classes. So one team is working on effective training program for the company, that they are developing a simulated project. 2 teams first time are working on knowledge management project. I generally have different team working on different project, but they showed interest on working on knowledge management project, which is more of a repository of knowledge. The explicit knowledge, which is all the documents and processes and procedures, but the tacit knowledge, what's sitting in people's mind, that needs to be captured using an IT platform. So they work on a 10-week project. Every 3 weeks, there is a status review where they submit the specific progress they've made on the project in systematic stages. And I give them feedback, and my role on this project as a faculty is to be a coach. Give them specific guidance, so keep them on track. And once they learn how to do one project well, they are able to do hundreds of projects throughout their life. And this is a great way to impart a good discipline to the students who are coming through the projects and project management course. And by the way, same discipline we need to instill in India. Meeting minutes. Now for project to be managed well, we need to manage our meetings. Don't make it too long, focused, issue-wise. As I discussed, status review meeting, take the meeting minutes and 1 page, capture these items, focus on what was the key discussion, what are key decisions, and action item number, what date it opened, what the action item is, who is going to work on it, and when the resolution is expected. It can vary depending on the complexity of the issue. And always evaluate your meeting, what worked well, did not work well, and what changes will you make. By instilling simple discipline and simple templates, your life will become much easier, stresses will be less, and results will be very positive. So here is a project life cycle. As an example, one way, project starts slowly, build up quick momentum in the middle, and come to a slow finish. But from the start to the finish, it can take any shape depending on the nature and complexity of your project. Now I want to share with you a beautiful graphic, humor in project management, with a fundamental concept behind it, the importance of customer requirements. So there are 10 small graphics. We begin with the top left, how the customer explained it, so understand that, and come to the bottom right, how what the customer really needed. So a lot of time customers do not have exact way of explaining what they are looking for. So it is your role as a project manager to first understand thoroughly what the requirements are. So if you go from the first graphic on the left to the next one, see what the project leader understood. The train has left the station and the project leader is not on that train. There's a disconnect between what customer was explaining and what the project leader understood. And that is a pity, because after that comedy of error starts, how the engineer designed it, how the programmer wrote it, how the sales executive described it. Of course, they want to collect good money, so they will give you many things which was not there. How the project was documented, there is nothing there. How operation installed, how the customer was billed, oh, royal contraption for which they never asked for it, how the help desk supported it, and of course, what the customer really wanted. So the guidance from this humor in project management is that as a project leader, it's your role to thoroughly understand customer requirements upfront and make sure that becomes a golden thread throughout the life of the project, and keep your customers involved at various stages when you make progress. So when the handoff comes, there are no surprises and customer is more willing to accept your output, whether it's a product or a service. Great lessons we can learn from simple cartoons and the graphics. So at this point, I'm going to stop and let's do quick interaction. Anil Kumar ji, any question? If not, Gezadilal ji, are there any questions from your side, please?
सर जो आपने अभी ये दिखाया था, पिक्चर्स दिखाई थी, it used to happen.
Yes.
But how we can prevent it now?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, as a project leader, thoroughly understand what the customer requirements are. And if those requirements do change, make sure that you are touching base with your project sponsors to not to take on many more changes through the life of the project, which will require changing the scope. And when you accept those changes without asking for any additional resource, is your problem, not the customer's issue. So you need to ask for additional resource, as I discussed before, on release in schedule, additional budget, or the relief in the performance as required for the new changes which are coming through. So that is one way to proactively manage and really understand the golden thread needed, the customer. Customer requirements are extremely critical. One more question from you, Gezalal ji, and then back to Anil Kumar ji. Any more from you, Gezalal ji?
Sir, no, sir.
Okay, hearing none. Anil Kumar ji, any quick question up to this point?
There's a view which has come from the student. Many a times what happens, like because of one region or other, you see the members who are part of the team executing the project. So what happens when sudden changes are made to the team who are going to work?
Yeah.
So like, I think they want to have your experience on this. How difficult is it to like maybe for a project to get over, like maybe in case sudden changes are made in team?
Yeah. So you need to understand why those changes were made. And this is where, as a project leader, you need to be proactive to ensure that all members of the team are contributing effectively. If they are not contributing, at least have a one-on-one dialogue as a leader with the one person at a time who are not contributing. Find out the reason behind, and also see if the person cannot contribute, you have to make a change, because otherwise team will suffer. And that change will take a little bit of a hit on timing wise, because new person needs to be coming on board, brief, quick realignment of what has happened and what they need to do, etc. But that effort will pay off in the long term, as long as your members of the team you are selecting are proactive. They have the positive attitude, can do, not I will not do it, I cannot do it, I have done it, it doesn't work. Those are the negative traits. So avoid those negative people. Put the right people in the first place. And remember the Jim Collins, put the right people on the bus and give them freedom to drive the bus in the right direction. That's the leadership lesson we learned from him. So that's requires effort, and that requires proactiveness on the part of project manager, project leader. One more question, Anil Kumarji. We'll keep moving in the journey.
So yes, Girdhari Lal ji is there probably.
हाँ सर, मेरा मानना है कई बार प्रोजेक्ट में नेगेटिव लोग बहुत ज्यादा आ जाते हैं, तो हाउ वी कैन अवॉइड?
Yeah. See, I think this is where planning is a fundamental aspect, and this is what we can learn from Dr. Deming's cycle: plan, do, study, and act. So as long as you have a luxury and you have a flexibility, check out people for their attitude, aptitude. Are they positive or they negative? And if they have a positive attitude, even if they don't have skill, they can learn the skill and be useful. But if they have a negative attitude, no matter how technically smart they are, they will disrupt the team. We call them acidic people. Zero tolerance for the jerks in the workplace. There's a beautiful book written by a consultant and a faculty from Stanford Graduate School of Business. So we need to be aware about the right set of people who needs to be joining the team. And that's where the obligation is on the part of the leadership. Back to you, Anil Kumarji. One last question, then keep moving.
Anuji, like maybe in typical government department, you are given the team member. You don't have much say. Who will be the people who are working with you? You don't have much of say. Probably this is where Girdhari Lal ji has a problem. Let me share my Let me share my experience with Girdhari Lal ji. Knowing the characteristic of the people, what do? I list out the typical risk that I am going to have because of those kind of negative people. So I have my contingency plan well prepared. So I have all those backup with me. Knowing that these are the kind of people who are going to create the problem. You plan for all those kind of things quite early. So that's the smart way of doing it. Maybe here at IIT BHU also we face those kind of problems. Like maybe so, but we had to work it smartly, and yes, that's what we do. The next question is like maybe when you are dealing with a very, very large project. So those large projects are ultimately to be broken into not only activities but mini projects. So point is, the query is when you have multiple mini projects. So how do you take up in terms of priority that you have for those mini projects, or in order of difficulty? How do you take up?
Okay, so I will say let's hold this question until I show the Gantt chart, one of the major tools we can all use. And the sequencing should be the way the project should flow, because as we know, there are dependency of task and subtask. So first you create a work breakdown structure, then you identify what are the dependency among the tasks, and then what the sequencing should be. So the guidance will come from simple tools like work breakdown structure, the Gantt chart, critical path, etc. So allow me to hold that question in a little bit more depth when we come to that. Okay, with that, I'm going to get back into the presentation because you have to keep moving, pick up the speed, and let's get back into it. Okay, are you able to see the humor in project management slide, please?
Yes.
Yes, okay, thank you. So the project management journey, here are the major 5 steps. We need to create a project charter. This is where we will completely define project and create a beautiful blueprint, and I'll go into it in more depth, the importance of project charter. Secondly, we need to develop the project plan. That's the aspect of planning. Then we need to start working as a team, going through the 5 stages of team formation. So forming, storming, norming, and performing. So we need to be at the 4th stage, performing as a member of the team with collaboration and cooperation, and execute our task and subtask by doing the project, and then at the end, closing it out, handing it off. So here comes the most important chart. I call it $64,000 slide, the importance of a project charter. So think of it this way. You want to construct a building. The first step you do is go to an architect, architect will draw up a blueprint which will include all the details needed for that building. And that is allows you to have a full scope of what is in the building, what is not in the building. Likewise, if you want to run a project, you must have a project charter, which is your blueprint to plan and take actions on the project. That's why it's very important. Secondly, that blueprint you create by working on a project charter in a team fashion will allow you to make fact-based decision-making and hopefully ethical decision-making. It requires you to identify all the stakeholders who will have the impact because of your project. It asks you to create a project vision and mission specific to the project. It will require objectives, deliverables, and milestones, very specific things, not generality, specificity is required. It will force you to identify in a group setting what are the risks which can derail the project and then allow you to prioritize them as a high, medium, low. And for those high risk projects, you need to have a mitigation plan in place. So if something goes wrong, you have a roadmap to travel. It requires communication strategy for the progress of the project among the team members, with the project sponsor, with the customer, etc. And it requires a sign-off on the charter by the team leader and the project sponsor and the customer, which freezes the scope of the project. That means whatever is written on those few pages of the charter, that should become the gospel. No changes to be made unless business conditions change. Then you have a new meeting to discuss the changes and its implication on three targets you agreed upon on performance, cost, and schedule. So sincere request, always insist on a project charter for every project. So keep in mind, if you are at the institute, either as a faculty or as a student, you do a lot of projects. As a student, you do graduate, postgraduate thesis, that's a project. You work as a faculty on many research projects, innovative things. Without the charter, you are just moving around in a random fashion, don't know where you want to go. You will end up somewhere, but not that's where you want to go. So when I've been talking to people at the ground level in India, students and faculties, some of them have never heard about project charter, some of them do not use them, and there is a random thing. There's no specific way everybody using the standard discipline of project management. And this is where I think we can do better in India. And I'll hold some thoughts on it towards the end, where there's a special things we need to do to inculcate project management in all our students, all our faculties systematically, so they can benefit by doing the projects well for benefit of the organization, benefit to themselves. And incidentally, in the academic year 22-23, Atal Academy FDPs, this concept of project charter has been introduced. And for the advanced and leadership FDPs, they are required to be either do a project in a 2 weeks program or do MCQs. But if you are doing the project, or even if not doing the project, they'll be discussing project charter and its implication. So very important aspect to take it forward. Now, I'll quickly run through some of the basic tools of the project management. One is the work breakdown structure. So you are assigned a project, you are at level 1. Then it need to start decomposing it to level 2, 3, and 4, where you have a task, subtask, and sub-subtask. At the lowest level, level 4, you are assigning it to individual members of the team. And by the way, team members can have multiple subtasks to work on. So this is where the allocation happens based on their willingness to work on a task or a subtask, as well as their strengths. So remember the theory of strengths we picked up on the teamwork module. That is very important combination. The volunteer and the strength combined they will do very well in delivering results for the task or a subtask. So here is a Gantt chart, which allows you to map out all the activities from the beginning to the end of the project. So the question which came from Anil Kumar ji, all the tasks and subtasks on a long-term projects need to be first identified and put it on a Gantt chart. And by the way, there are some nice software available. Microsoft Project Professional 2021 version has just come out. Some of these are expensive, but I've seen at the institute level, they get the license, and at the company level also, they get the license. So everybody who are working on the project have access to this nice software, which allows you to do many things. And the software will pop out Gantt chart, network diagram, resource allocation, dependencies, and all those things. And the reminders when the statuses are due, and final project report and everything can be populated through the Gantt chart and through the software. So answer to that question was, if it was a longer term project, you map out all the items, activity you need to do as a y-axis, and then logically think through with the help of your team members what is important and which one will come first, to design the sequence of events where there are dependencies. So you see the second activity completes, it will become the input to the third activity, and so on and so forth. So there are dependencies you need to keep in mind and ensure that they are happening at the right time, at the right level of activity is completed. Next one is a critical path method. And I'm going to pose a question on this item, very critical to understand. So first of all, let me define what is the importance of critical path. So critical path is the longest path you will travel from the beginning to the end of the project. So here you see in the diagram, 11, 6 to 7 is a one activity. 5, 6, 7 is second activity. Third activity is 4, 6, 7. Last activity is 8, 6, 7. All these 4 activities from the left needs to meet at 6 and then continue for one more week to complete the project at activity 7, at the station 7. So here there are multiple critical paths. And why critical path is important? Because when you start on a project, you are given a schedule and you're signed off on a schedule. In order to meet the schedule, you need to first identify what is the items on the critical path, which must be done within that window of time. And if you slip on a critical path, if you miss the critical path, achieving that on a given schedule, your overall schedule is going to slip. You are not going to meet the schedule requirements, which will be a shame because you planned the project well, but you have taken your eyes off the ball on the critical path. So just to make it easier, there are multiple critical paths. So look at it one more time. I'll ask one or two people if they have answered how many critical paths are here and what is the total length of the critical path. So the hint is there are multiple critical paths. Not everything is in the critical path. So if you have absorbed it, let me stop sharing and ask the question, and then we'll resolve this issue. Anyone figured out? One volunteer, and that's all we can take. How many critical paths were there, and what was the duration of the critical path? So please speak up through. Give the input to Anil Kumar ji. Students, you are all smart. You can crack this.
Like maybe he can, the boy who is sitting along with me, he can answer. He says like maybe he needs to go back and look into that slide once again.
Sure. I'll do that. Just 1 second, and this time I'm putting the audio because we are going to have one more beautiful YouTube coming in. Okay, take a look at the slide here. 11, 6, 7, 5, 6, 7, 4, 6, 7, 8, 6, 7. How many critical paths and what is the total duration of the critical path? Those are the two simple questions.
Now,
And keep in
come
mind, it's not rocket science.
come over here and answer. Hello?
Yeah,
Come
go
over here.
ahead. Good.
From here also you can see it. Na? Huh? Achha, now okay. He's going close to the screen. He has problem with the eye.
Okay, no issue.
Could you read the activity duration for all the activities? One is requiring 1 day, the other 3 activities. Beginning activities, they each are requiring 1 week. The later part, 6, 7 also requires 1 week. So what do you say? That is the question. Come over here.
As far as I can see, I think there are two critical parts because, if we take the path of 1 day, that will be cleared in the timeline when we are taking the project for the path for 1 week. So, if we take the path for 1 week, it will obviously be a superset of the path we are taking for 1 day. So, one path I can see of 2 weeks, and one path after completing that project I can see of 1 week. So I am telling that maybe there are two critical parts for this.
Okay, so thank you. The answer is partially correct, not totally correct. So in the interest of time, let me explain. Critical path is the activity where there is no slack. So if you look at 11 to 6, it can be accomplished on day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7, any time of the week, and still come to 6. But there are 3 critical paths, not 2, 5, 6, 7, 4, 6, 7, and 8, 6, 7. Because each one of those remainder of the path, 5 to 6, 4 to 6, and 8 to 6, requires 1 week each. There is no slack time. So it must be completed during that same week. All 3 of them come to 6 and then spend 1 more week. So simple answer, 3 critical paths, 5, 6, 7, 4, 6, 7, 8, 6, 7. And total duration of the critical path is 2 weeks, 1 week plus 1 week. The one path 11 to 6 to 7 is not on a critical path because 11 to 6, there is a slack. I hope all of you get the gist of it. It's very important to identify your critical path upfront and keep watching that your critical path never shrinks and you are not blowing up your critical path. If you can manage well and reduce the length of the critical path, you will come in early, hopefully with the right performance and within the budget, but ensure that you are not missing your critical path. So thank you, partially correct, but good learning to be done. So let's talk a little bit about budget control. This question had come up that budget money is given and then it's not managed well. So money gets done and project is stranded. So just going back to home front situation, at the beginning of the month, you know how much money coming in, how much is the expense. You have to manage those expenses within the money coming in. If you don't, you have to start dipping into your savings account. And if you continue to do that, after a while, there is no money left in the savings account also. Exactly the same way, for the duration of the project, you are given X amount of money, divvy it up into, say, 6 months project, 6 compartments, and each of the compartment, each of the milestone at a monthly level, you allocate the amount of money which will be required to accomplish task and subtasks according to your work breakdown structure and the Gantt chart, how much money will be needed to accomplish those tasks and subtasks and finish those activities. You allocate that. Every month, rigorously review the amount of money spent against the budget and ensure that you are still within the limit. And if you keep blowing up the budget, say, for example, in 4 months, you have blown up 6 months budget. Last 2 months, nothing will happen. There is no money there. Nobody will work on anything. And that's not the right thing to do. So simple guidance is manage your budget on the project similar to how you manage your budget at the home front. Now, here is a beautiful concept you can keep in mind. US Department of Defense came out with this earned value management to control the cost and the projects money to be allocated to contractors and subcontractors. So 40, 50 years ago, subcontractors were taking government to the cleaners. They will charge exorbitant amount of like $100 to $150 for a simple nut or a bolt. So government put this item in place, earned value management. So consider 4 quarters, 1, 2, 3, 4. The planned work is 25 units each. Actual cost varied from 22, 20, 25, 25. But the earned value of completed work was uniform, 20 units each. Now, out of 4 quarters, one of the quarter is the best, and that is quarter number 2, because the earned value divided by actual cost is 20 over 20, 100%. Second best quarter is earned value of 20, that's a quarter number 1, 20 divided by 22. And quarter 3 and 4 were the worst one. You are getting the value of 20, but you are spending the amount of 25. So by keeping this running summary on a quarterly basis, government can monitor the progress done by the subcontractor and allocate the funds for the value they have completed, rather than keep giving them money just for the sake of activity, not the results. So result focus. Nice concept to keep in mind when you are working on a project in an organization setting. So we are going to pick up on some of these items, and a lot of some of these issues will keep coming back for the understanding that these are common things which runs the thread among leadership, decision-making, time management, teamwork, etc., where communication is a lifeblood for a project. And we saw earlier in the sessions that no matter what job we have in life, success comes 5% by academic credentials, 15% by professional experiences, but 80% by our communication skills. So each member of the team must work on communication and make it extremely efficient for the success of the project. Modes of communication, verbal, written, and presentation. No fog. Clarity, very clear. Try to write less. I'll give you the example. When they write up the project report for my classes here, they have 12 to 15 pages to pick up all the key items on the project report, for which they are given a structure, and they can have additional attachments in the back as annexures as appropriate, not everything, but the important thing. And the purpose of writing succinctly and simply is that those project reports which are created becomes the turnkey project which anybody can pick up and run it to manage the project at the organization. And you need to have everything clear, concise, very effective, and continue to practice. Now here comes some specific guidance in the context of the project management. So you request a person to send you some information on a project. Information is sent by the sender, receiver gets it. This is one-way communication. Story has not completed. Story only completes when the acknowledgement is sent by the receiver to the sender. This is the fundamental rule of project management, two-way communication. And I would say not just project management, but communication is a fundamental lifeblood for all the activities we do in life, both professionally and personally. Only time the sender will hear from the receiver is when something is incorrect. So it doesn't take long when you request a sender, message is coming in, receiver can take 30 seconds to acknowledge received, everything is fine, and that way sender knows that the communication is complete. If you don't send as a receiver the message to the sender, sender has no idea whether it was received, everything is okay, or is it sitting in the black hole somewhere. Communication basics, there should be purpose, message, media, and effectiveness. And I'll pick up on the effectiveness of the communication. And that comes from the feedback from the receiver. And the receiver needs to give relevant, timely, and useful feedback. Don't just say it's not good. Just say very specifically what is not good and what needs to be changing. And I'm sure the young team at IIT BHU, working with the leadership under the leadership of Manu K, they have learned how to do a project, the fast track project, in the 6 weeks, actually 5 weeks of doing 6 sessions week after week. So how to do the agile project, communication becomes the essential component. And if everybody does the communication well, nobody has to do extra work. Very important aspect in the communication is we need to pick up listening skills. So to be good at communication, continue to work on listening skills. Pay attention to the person who is communicating. First, understand the message before responding. When you have doubt, get the clarity from the other person. And the idea of listening is to create a meaningful dialogue for action. And to become active listener, look at the speaker directly. Take out distracting thoughts. Third, most important, don't get mentally ready for a rebuttal, because then you are missing out what the other person is saying. No distraction by side conversation. Listen to speaker's body language when you are face to face. You should be able to repeat what the others have said practically word for word. And listening and taking notes will serve you well. And I picked up on good listening skills when I joined AT&T Bell Labs back in 1983. My role as a new person, new to the telecommunication, was to be the note taker. So my supervisor will take me along. Every meeting, I was the one assigned as a scribe. I would listen intently to pick up the nuances of what was discussed, write up the meeting notes that day, share it with my supervisor. He will make some minor changes, and then we send it out. Listening skills, I think we can all do better on this. So project lessons learned. This is one of the template which should become fundamental part and parcel of managing a project. At the end, your team sits down and does the lessons learned session. What worked well in the project, what did not work well in the project, and things you can change for improving the future projects. And by the way, all the consulting firms, the Accenture, the McKinsey, the Boston Consulting Group of the world, they only do projects in teams where they work at various levels of management. And when the project is complete, they archive it in the knowledge management system, including the lessons learned, so that when new projects come, they can review the project which were complete and learn from what worked and what did not work. Now we come to the last aspect of managing the risk. So as I mentioned up front, project means you are getting into uncharted waters, unknown, unfamiliar things you are working on first time. That means the risk is inherent part of the project. And that's why managing the risk is critical. And by the way, this risk management applies to National Education Policy 2020 implementation, because unless we all come together at each and every institute, higher education institutes and K through 12 schools, and understand systematically how to deploy implementation by doing the things in a shotgun way, doing something which you like, do that and forget the rest, which will not give you the best value from the National Education Policy 2020. And managing the risk is part of that. Putting the project management in place is part of that activity. So the risk comes from the insurance industry, where they define at the highest level. It's a multiplier of likelihood of something going bad. And when something goes bad, what's the actual loss? So multiplier of likelihood times the loss is defined as a risk in aggregate. So you can consider those who are working, your stock portfolios, loans made by a bank for your automobile, house, or even the health insurance, health insurance policy, house, the automobile policy, house insurance, etc. When you play for lotteries and gambling, you are spending money, and the establishment doesn't give out 100%. They keep about 15% for the profit, and rest is given out to few at the expense of the others. So millions contribute to benefit few people who get a jackpot. So that's where the risk is managed. So here is a simple guidance. When you begin your project, you are going to work on a project charter. And in one of the components on the project charter is identify all possible risk which will come in the way for the success of the project. And by the way, risk comes because activities and events you are doing, there could be some delays, cost goes up when the duration is large for the project, and some technical glitch may come up. You have never done this before, so you will need some extra help, resources, expert help to overcome contingency plan to mitigate the risk. And after the risk happens, something bad has happened, now you can only think of using your contingency plan to recover and navigate the project to safety and bring it home.
Manuji, there was a disturbance. Like maybe can you go back 3-4 slides? We had network issue, and the other slides did not get broadcasted.
Okay, which one? Starting with the risk definition.
This was done. This was done. Next one. Yes. Yes. From here.
Okay. All right. So two aspects. When we begin the project, as a team members sit down and do the brainstorming about what things can go wrong, which can derail the project. But understand the risk is inherent part. It can come from delays in the activities you are doing. The cost can go up when there is a longer duration project. Then some technical glitch may come. Something comes in the way. You will need expert opinion, expert guidance, so costs will also go up. So the simplest way to do it is you identify upfront all the risk that are possible, what can go wrong. So keep going through the brainstorming. Identify at least 5 to 6 risks, and then arrange them high, medium, low, again through the brainstorming. And for the items which show up as a high, I'll show you in the next slide, risk metrics, you need to have a contingency plan. So 3x3 risk metrics, likelihood on the y-axis, consequences on the x-axis. When out of your 5 to 6 risks you have identified, those which sit in the top right quadrant area, the red one, you need to have a contingency plan. So if the risk is known, is it controllable, then deal with causes, the prevention issue. Not controllable, deal with effects, the contingency plan. This is very important to understand the timeline. You started a project, before something bad happens, you are trying to focus on avoiding or mitigating the risk and develop the contingency plan. But when something bad happens, you have only one way to do, that is deploy the contingency plan and try to bring the project home without getting impacted by the risk. Activity risk management, y-axis, the likelihood, x-axis, the actual loss. 4 quadrants. Quadrant 2, both of them are very high. You need to transfer the risk, and this is where people take the insurance. So think of all the airplanes. Each one of them are insured for $2 billion, generally by the Lloyd's of London. Over 350 years, they take the riskiest project and then give the insurance for them. And of course, they divide it up to reduce the individual impact among resharing other insurance companies. Quadrant 1, both are low, likelihood and the loss. You accept it by keeping a reserve. Quadrant 3 and 4, you need to have a risk mitigation plan in which focus is on managing the processes, training, building the redundancy, etc. beautiful article on activity risk management. The last component is a jet propulsion lab. When they were working on sending a probe to the Mars, initial cost was $600 million. Project started in 2010 as a part of NASA mission to the Mars. And they had a major focus on launching, cruising, entry, descent, landing, and surface operations. So types of risk were three major types: business as usual for launch and a cruise because they had enough expertise. Unknown risk was entry, descent, and landing of the probe. Will it survive in the Martian environment? And the surface operations where they needed to have new technologies and new engineering to ensure that the probe can travel on the surface of the Mars and collect the samples and send the analysis back to the Earth. So they identified 6 major risks and 2 items shown in the red, and they were using 5x5 risk metrics. 2 items, the radar on board, which needed to sense when the craft was within 15 seconds before hitting the surface, fire the retro rockets to guide the craft from 150 miles to smooth landing, 15 second, 150 miles to 0 speed, and biomarker science analyzer instrument, centerpiece of the mission. They got the highest risk number, 4.3 or 3.4 multiplier, likelihood times the loss, and they had to keep working on those 2 issues during the planning stage and before the probe was sent in 2011, the Curiosity rover. So here we are for a beautiful treat from Curiosity rover. Nice animation from NASA, so let's enjoy. beautiful way to learn how the project was managed. And by the way, $600 million original cost ended up to $2 billion for the Curiosity rover back in 2011. Excellent resources on project management. In my classes, they read at least 8 articles in a 10-week program. To bring it home, project productivity model, there are 4 Ps. Planning multiplied by promotion, multiplied by personal touch, multiplied by persistence. This will bring your project to 100% success. And these are all 4 items in parallel, like electrical circuit in parallel. So in summary, my simple request is in India, all higher education institute need to include project management course in their curricula. Design the project management course by integrating leadership, decision-making, time management, teamwork, problem-solving, and risk management, and leverage the project management knowledge to solve society's real problems and help in nation building. And that we will cover in the next session. How do we give back to the society through 2 special projects in the NGO space? We have covered today the 5th session. Tomorrow we have exactly same time, career development guidance, very important session for every professional, students or faculty, or people working in the industry. 2 key takeaways on today's session, and we may have a time for 1 or 2 questions before we close. So back to you, Anil Kumarji. One question from you and 1 question.
It's all about budget control. The question is, how do you manage the budget of a project if any unexpected dependency comes in between the timeline of the project?
Yeah.
So you have already given the answer, like maybe you identify the risk, etc., but you would like to elaborate, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is where if the project is important and if the management is kept informed, they have a management reserve, as I mentioned, up to 20%, up to 50% more money they can allocate. So we saw from the Mars mission, actually $600 million project became $2 billion to make it a success. So that's how you need to convince the management that you are on a critical path. The resources, what you have done the work what needed to be done, but now extra resources needed to complete the project. Okay, 1 from you, Gitarlalji, and then we need to close because we are coming to the next. Yeah.
How we can inculcate this project management in higher education? It is a first year, second year, third year, final year, which year is the best?
Yeah, so you have to start at the very first year level. Provide the discipline to all the students who are entering the higher education institutes. And I would even suggest expose them to project management while they are in the 11th and 12th grade. So they have some notion because they do projects in this K through 12 schools also. So they need to be given some fundamental guidance. What is project management? How do you focus on 3 things, performance, cost, and schedule? And train the faculty as well. Because what I'm seeing is not all faculties are good at this. Those who are good are extremely good, and they do fundamental research, applied research, and write many papers, patents, etc. But then others are struggling. So we need to take everybody along. It's not just for me or you only, it's for everyone, because this is how we build the nation. With that, I think I'm going to keep this session on the track. We are right on the money. We should not overextend our time because that's one of the promises we have made to all our listeners. We start on time and we end on time.
So thank you, Manuji. Before we close, a big thanks to you, and from my side, a big round of applause. You have done a wonderful job. The kind of input you have provided in practical world, like they mean a lot. So not only you talked about like maybe how do you manage the project, but you talked about the various risks, etc. In case you do not plan for the risk, the success that you are looking from the project will never come. So like, yes, you have to look into both sides of the coin itself. One is maybe what are the things which are directly involved, and the other side, what are the possible regions because of which you are likely to fail. So in case you plan very well for against those kind of risk, I think like maybe you are going to come out with the successful result from the project. Thank you very much, Manuji, for doing a wonderful job.
Yeah,
Thank you,
my
sir. We
pleasure.
are very grateful to you, sir. Very grateful to
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. Thank you, Kedarlal ji. Thank you, Anil Kumar ji.
So
Okay,
good.
we are
Have a
ending
good
the
day, Manuji.
session.
You are in
Yeah,
US.
thank you.
And for
Yeah,
the others,
and
a
we will
very
have
good
a
night.
small team meeting next 15 minutes. I'll be calling in 2 minutes.
Rest of the people should leave, like maybe all those people
Yeah.
who are there. So.
Yeah. So I think either Anil Kumar ji send me a link for a short meeting, 15 minutes after this program.
So we'll meet on Google Meet. I'm going to send you the link immediately.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you.
So let us leave this link.
Namaskar.
Namaskar. Namaskar. Namaskar.
Bye.